I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome that prevents people from reaching out to people they think that are more impressive or cooler than them, and you got to shoot your shot.
It's much easier to be yourself than it is to try to be a character. The more clear you can get on like how you want to do marketing, the more authentic you'll be able to be.
I don't want to be boring, right? I don't want to like not take any risks. I wouldn't say I want to be like personally flamed on LinkedIn so much, but I definitely want to put ourselves out there and take kind of stances that are controversial.
If you are saying like, I am going to be controversial, you better put your big boy pants on and you better be ready to defend those positions.
Hey, I'm Max Greenwald, CEO and founder of Warmly, being joined today by Dave Gerhardt, the author of Founder Brand, in our multi-part series to break down a chapter at a time and try to figure out how the heck I can get my business from 5 to 10 million in ARR by unlocking our marketing motion. This episode is chapter 4. We are going to kind of recap a little bit about how we thought about chapter 3, which was about needing an explainer to explain what Warmly is all about, and then moving into chapter 4, which is about defining role models, mentors, and anti-role models too. Dave, how's it going?
Good, Max. I'm happy to be here. We've sold 3 books from doing this, so I'm happy, and I'm happy to keep going.
Let's go. Hopefully we can drive up those book sales even more. I'm really excited to be here and to get going. Last month, Dave, we talked a little bit about something called the explainer, which basically is about how to describe what our product is. So we now are doing a good job defining the problem of what we're chasing, the villain that we want to take down, the niche that Warmly goes after. And then now the next piece of the puzzle is to figure out how to explain what we do. So after we talked last time, we ran some user tests and tried to figure out what is our story, what is the outcome of the product or company or category and direction we're trying to build. And based on a lot of your advice from the last chapter, where we landed was, drumroll please, AI tools to build your best lists of prospects and convert them automatically. So we tried a couple of different options and basically thought about being more category defining, being more abstract, being more of a platform. But at the end of the day, especially with the rise of sort of the AI stuff, we want to just keep it kind of dumb and simple, which is just AI tools to build your best list of prospects and then convert them automatically.
I like it. It's clear. It's specific. I think it's wise to be drafting off of AI tools right now. So I like it.
Cool. Another tagline that we're going to use, not our H1, but our H2, kind of the subcategory or tagline, really gets at the villain that we defined in chapter 2, which was ABM, and how where account-based marketing falls short is not getting to the person level. And so our tagline is, Warmly uses person-level intent signals to identify and prioritize your best potential customers in real time.
I think for the right person, it works.
You're hesitating there. What could be tweaked on that? What felt confusing?
I think what's compelling is what you said before, which is like the problem with one of the challenges with the ABM stuff in its current form is that you get a list of accounts, but you still don't know who to contact at those accounts. Maybe there's a way to pay off on that more, person level, like, and maybe you know this, but like, do your customers know that they need that?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the phrases that we've been playing with that we didn't include here, but I'm curious to get your thoughts because it's kind of an alternative, is the phrase buying committee. The idea is like first you get the accounts and then you try to find the buying committee in B2B software who would buy that product. Do you think there's a way that we can use that in the Warmly pulls the intent signals of the buying committee or anything there?
I don't have deep experience in this world of ABM, so I'm just riffing on the language here.
Yep.
The buying committee, I understand the concept of the buying committee, but when I think of buying committee, I think of like a committee of people sitting around a table being like, bring us Warmly. We will now evaluate if we shall buy Warmly. And you have like 10 seconds to like, I understand that, but like inside of the company, there's not like, okay, who's the buying committee? There are multiple people that are involved in the process. And so I like when you can use words that like regular humans use and say things clearly and directly. It's why I like the AI tools to help you, I wonder if there's, when we get more in the world of like buying committee and person level, that's where, and I think part of your brand is very authentic and approachable.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting to play off the approachability angle of like kind of a keep it simple thing of like easy to get started with or easy ways to find people at companies you want to reach.
Right. Like say what it is. You know what I mean? Like help identify the people. There's something there in how you said that is like, say it directly. There's a line there that could be relevant to my account, even though you don't sell to, SMBs or like consumer folks. Like there's something there that could be relevant to everyone. Like, what if you could know the exact person at a company that's interested in buying your product?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what you can do.
I like it. All right. Well, we'll keep iterating on and thinking about the explainer. And one of the things that
I think. Look, I'm just riffing. Like, I think you got a good. That you have a deep understanding of the company, of which I don't, and I think you're thinking about things the right way.
No, I like it. And actually, when we think about the explainer, we kind of have to segment it by persona as well. So there may be a like kind of specific persona or a specific explainer per persona. As we kind of recap and finish out with the kind of explainer, the next kind of section of your book starts to get into how a founder can build their brand to be able to take action on, the product they want to build, the problem they want to solve. And this gets us into chapter 4, which is basically about finding your mentors, finding your role models, and finding your anti-role models. And, I kind of feel like now in the age of AI, as things are kind of changing so rapidly, like a lot of the old, truisms about SaaS and about B2B are changing really fast. And so I guess maybe to start, talk to us a little bit about like, how should a founder think about or break down who the people they want to follow in this new world is?
So the way that I think about this is like, I think there are multiple ways to succeed in marketing. And I listened to this great conversation recently with Brett Taylor, who was like the, head of product at Salesforce and CTO at Facebook. And now he has some other AI just one of the like kind of legendary SaaS, creators in Silicon Valley. He was talking about the concept of just like getting advice from people. And he's like, the problem is that like almost everyone's advice is not statistically significant. We are all biased to like one thing that we're so it's like, oh, I'm talking, Max is the founder and he told me like, never hire a head of sales from this background. And it's like, well, that's probably because Max had like one bad experience. And he's like, and I was like, oh man, that's the perfect like comparable to marketing, because we say like, ABM doesn't work. And it's like, well, my last company, it didn't work, or like going up market didn't work, or TikTok didn't work, and it's like, well, but then on the flip side of it, I can think of reasons why all of those things did work.
I'm part of a community called YPO, and one of the things they coach us on as they develop us as leaders is to, instead of advice share, you what's called experience share, which gets at this exact topic, which is like, instead of saying, here's what you should do, you should say, here's my lived experience. Take that with a grain of salt.
Love that. And then because also for each one of those examples, right, there's probably times in all of our lives that we have gotten advice from someone and then did the opposite and things turned out pretty damn good. The way that I think of this like role models thing, and this is the craft of marketing to me, right? And so it's like, you need to understand, I think that there are probably multiple ways that you could market warmly. Of course there are. But which ones feel authentic and right and compelling to you? And so it's like, okay, which type of brand do we want to be from a marketing standpoint, right? And so it's like, do we want to be, this is just some riffing on an example, like, do we want to be Patagonia? And do we want to give, is it important for us to give like 1% of our sales back to charity? Is it important for us to use, to take, returns and recycle them, and to do this with our ad strategy, and to believe in these causes, or to be Ben and Jerry's, or do you want to be more like IBM or whatever? And so I think there's so many ways to succeed in marketing. Defining your role models is more like, hey, which brands do we like? Like, who do we want to be like? And I would say for you guys, like, don't just think of SaaS. Don't be like, oh, well, there's whoever came before us, like Clay is crushing it like right now. I wonder what they're doing, or Salesforce or HubSpot, whatever. It's like, who are the brands that you even like in your personal life? Right before this call, we were talking about a new album that came out and the press tour and the marketing for that album. And it's like, sure, you guys are selling B2B software, but there's some lessons from that you can apply. And so I think that great marketing.
I want to call out a really important thing here, which is what you're describing is like, we're looking here to talk about brand role models, brand mentors, and brand anti-role models in this chapter. And I think that, let's say you're a founder doing a developer tool or something, you probably have the best, nerdiest folks in computer science that you've been following for your whole career and think are badasses. And those too serve as mentors and role models to you. However, in the context of building a founder brand, I think what you're describing, Dave, is like we got to find brand mentors and brand role models.
Yeah, brand mentors and brand role models, because like anything can be in play, but I think the better your marketing is when you have a strong point of view on how you're going to do marketing. And so that's where that exercise comes from. And then the anti-role models is like also really helpful, because you might not always have this list of like companies that you think are amazing and do great marketing. But I bet you have in a couple of examples of like things you absolutely don't want to do. You know, like when I was at Drift, for an example, we decided that we wanted to always kind of write in a very personal tone, and we didn't want to do highly designed emails. We wanted them to be plain text because that was our brand tone of voice. We wanted it to be like a defining characteristic for the brand. Okay, so now that we know that, how does that play out into all the other things that we do from a marketing standpoint?
When I started thinking about pulling together role models, mentors, etc., your book challenges us to actually reach out and pull these people in. And I think, speaking for myself, but also on behalf of other potentially like gun shy founders out there, I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome that prevents people from reaching out to people they think that are more impressive or cooler than them. And, you got to shoot your shot. But any sort of thoughts or advice on like actually reaching out to some of these people to actually chat with you?
I don't think you need to chat with them. Like I don't. I think that's a myth. I think that it's just like in our community with Exit 5, I get a lot of messages about like how do I find a mentor? And I think everybody wants this like magical person that you can like call. And I've always just kind of been like, there are some people who are, I'm not a very pushy person. There are some people who are like, I'm going to cold email this founder 50 times until I can get a meeting with her. And that's just not how I am. And so like, I think that one of the coolest things about today is that you can observe almost anyone and anything from afar. This is where I would apply your like hustle mentality as a founder, not like, so-and-so is the role model. I need to get them on the phone to find out how they did marketing. It's like, that's bullshit. You don't need to do that. Go plug the website into the Wayback Machine and go look at all of their iterations of the brand. Like, you could go.
And actually, that's kind of the best part about brand role models and brand mentors is that they probably have left a pretty strong digital trail to learn from.
Absolutely. Even if you're not a huge company, even if you're just getting started out, like so many founders and CEOs and executives and whoever, they're going on podcasts and they're doing interviews. And so I've done this even with Exit 5. Like there's a couple other founders that have built similar companies to like what Exit 5 is. I can literally go to YouTube or go to Spotify and I just type in their name and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like there's a podcast called How I, Built to Sell. Here's how this one guy like built his, look, and they share everything. I don't need a meeting with that person. Like they shared revenue, numbers, benchmarks, all that stuff. And so of course, if you want to meet with them and pick their brain, good luck. And you can try to go do that. But I think you can find all this. I think it's just about having a strong point of view about how did someone get to where they're going? What moves did they make? I'm sure you can find a lot of benchmarks internally. So that's how I would approach it.
I like it. In terms of actually like lists and kind of prep for this conversation, I put together a couple of role models, curious your take and how I'm going to go find them. But, one of the people that I really admire is actually in my space, this guy, Adam Robinson, who runs a company called RB2B. We integrate with their data source, but he's a super build in public, transparent kind of guy. I'm sure you've seen his stuff around. So I think he counts as one for me.
Yeah, he's good for you, but I think you guys are very different at the same time. And so I think like Adam loves to play the heel, right?
Yeah. I'm actually curious about that, which is I don't necessarily want to emulate his writing style or some of his like attitudes on, certain topics, but I think that the build in public and transparency thing I like. So maybe how can founders think about taking aspects of brand role models as the whole thing?
You just answered your question, which is like, I think just this is actually perfect. And it's like, you can take little bits of ingredients. And so it's like, you're building Max's playbook here. And so you're like, what I want is like, I like how Adam shares revenue and numbers and specifics and tactics. And he's very transparent. I like that. But I don't want to open up my LinkedIn every day and deal with people flaming me or trying to fight with me. Like, do you want that? If you do, if you're like, I want that.
I've had more than enough of that on LinkedIn. I'm done with that.
Right. So like, okay, that's cool. Okay, cool. So then maybe, here's an interesting company. Like, all right, so the transparency is key, specifics. Like then there's like Buffer, right? Buffer's been a social media scheduling app for, 15, 20 years, whatever. They share all their stuff publicly. Okay, so that's interesting. So I like that. You can find different little bits and you're kind of just like building your, putting all these Legos together as opposed to buying the kit and just opening it, right?
Another role model that I really enjoy watching kind of like in action is Dave Risher, who's the new CEO at Lyft. He basically took over from the founders, and one of the things I like most about him is that he essentially drives Lyft, I think, a couple weeks a year to like interact with customers and to like learn from and actually use the product as the experience of a driver. The ethos that I want to take away is sort of like use your own product, deal with your ground level customer, and always stay close to the user.
Dave Risher. I like that. Yeah, that's great. The goal of this exercise is like the people, but also it's a forcing function to get these like brand traits out. And it's like, what I'm hearing is like, stay close to the customer, actually use the product, right? Don't ever let that get away from us. Be authentic, be transparent, share numbers and specifics. You know, you can kind of now build these out as prompts almost. I think it's great.
When we move to the mentor section, obviously thank you for being my mentor here on this podcast. One of the types of mentors that I am thinking about as well is VCs. So as a founder, obviously VCs have a very different mindset, but VCs often put out really good pieces, and they also see a lot more data, right, than that one anecdote for a founder. Do you have any concern or advice on making VCs mentors?
No.
Cool. And then the last one is the anti-role model. So when I think about for Warmly, like what I don't want to be boring, right? I don't want to like not take any risks. I wouldn't say I want to be like personally flamed on LinkedIn so much, but I definitely want to put ourselves out there and take kind of stances that are controversial. You know, I'm going to be looking in the realm of like the anti-role models who are playing it too safe and are too enterprising.
Look, you'll get flamed no matter what. You can say things that, even if you don't say things that are controversial, like I wrote a joke about golf one time. I love golf, and obviously nobody on LinkedIn, there's not a lot of overlap, and it was just it was the wrong audience to post this to. That was my fault. But like this guy that I am close friends with said he interviewed with a CEO one time, and the guy asked his handicap, and the guy's a really good golfer, and he said it was a scratch golfer, and the CEO said, well, you can never work for me. Anyone who's that good at golf doesn't work hard enough to be any good at my company. And I thought that was hilarious, and it's a funny joke, especially if you're a golfer. And I posted some combination of that on LinkedIn, and like, dude, this guy flays like, what kind of asshole is Dave Gerhardt? He's saying you can't have hobbies outside of work, and I'm like, there's no room for nuance. I'm like, buddy, I made a joke that went completely over your head, and now you're just being a jerk to me in the comments. And then the other thing is like, I often get, man, you're so much nicer. You're nicer and funnier in person than I thought you would be based on LinkedIn. And I'm like, this is the problem with social media is people are reading your stuff and they're projecting who they think you are. They're taking their biases and their beliefs into like, Dave is another little bald white man in tech, so he must be like this. And so you have to just like let that go, and like people will find it. You will write something that's not controversial, and you will be like, wait, all of a sudden this, someone commented on one of my LinkedIn posts one time, well, what about that? What about deaf people? And I'm like, wait, what? Like, so that's just the world we live in. And if you're going to participate on social media in any capacity, like you just have to know that. On the other side of things, though, if you are saying like, I am going to be controversial, then you have to, you better put your big boy pants on, and you better be ready to defend those positions. And so I think like, the way that works is you have to have conviction, and you have to really strongly believe in those things. Like I change my mind very easily, but depending on who's yelling at me. So I'm not great at that. But if you have a fundamental belief that is core to Warmly, then I think that changes it. If you're just trying to be controversial for controversial sake, that doesn't work.
But I guess though, to help founders with figuring out who are their anti-role models, are there any exercises you'd suggest to kind of start to map out what you don't want to be like?
Yeah, for this one, I would just think about like what types of marketing. I wouldn't even think about founder brand specifically here. I would think about like, to me, when I wrote this part, it's not just specific to founder brand, it's just the marketing strategy in general. And it's like, think about yourself as a consumer. What are the things that you don't like, right? Oh, these types of emails, these type of requests, these types of graphics, these corny, like, two white dudes in suits shaking hands.
And also probably in the perspective of your persona, which is like, who do you sell to, and what are the things that they probably don't like?
Yes, but I think this is very specific. I think you need to have an opinion and a point of view for how you want to do marketing. This is kind of like, we're going to have a vision and we're going to bring people with us. And so it's always important to be empathetic and make sure your audience, but I'm talking about you, like, because just it's too hard to run a company and to do marketing, and you're like, oh, well, our customers like this stuff, but I don't, so we're gonna do it anyway. It's like, that's pretty hard to be authentic in that world. Like,
it's a great point. I mean, especially as a lot of founders move up market, like we are. I'm kind of noticing that like the mid-market and the enterprise buyer is pretty different than myself. And I'm evolving and growing and learning like their pain points, what they like and don't like. But I want to, I think, be careful not to stray too far from my inherent SMB founder brand as I become more enterprisey.
Well, I think like, it depends on what you're talking about. So for example, maybe you might not like events and dinners, and the enterprise buyer loves dinners and events. Like that's an example of like, okay, sure, you're probably going to have to do those types of things if you want to reach the enterprise. But you don't like this way of doing things, and so you're going to find a way to make it like what's Warmly's take on this that's going to make it feel authentic to you.
Makes sense. Any advice or challenges for me in the next month as I go forth here and try to develop my list of role models, mentors, and anti-role models?
I think just really pushing to be as specific as you can about having a strong point of view on how you want to do marketing, really pushing to find things like building a mood board of the types of marketing that you like and don't like. Because I feel like that, again, back to what we said earlier, every channel can work in marketing, but you need to have a strong opinion. And I'm thinking of a founder that I worked with in particular that had the strongest point of view on marketing and how we should do marketing. That was the company that made the biggest impact and we did the best work.
Nice. I like that.
Everything else, because otherwise it's just cookie cutter stuff. And so if it's just like, yeah, I'm just doing the exercise, here's kind of this stuff, here's kind of don't, like, have a take, be like Patagonia in that example and say like, we're only going to use real customers and real employees in every one of our ads. And they always have to have real pictures, real humans, real pictures.
Yeah, I think the importance, I'm going to be following a lot of new people in the next month to try to get a sampling for like who are the types of role models, mentors that I can learn from. Your advice pushes me to say before I start that exercise, list some of the things that I want to be opinionated about and then see how like large sampling of people that I'm testing, whether I'm enjoying learning from their content, actually fit that.
And this is the whole thing about the founder-led marketing, I think, that people miss also beyond. It's not just about founder brand, posts on LinkedIn. It's just like, if the founder has a deep passion and understanding of marketing, it can be a competitive advantage for your business. Not everyone's going to want to do that. That might not be comfortable. That might not be right. And so you don't. But if you're looking for competitive advantages, you might just say, yeah, I'm just going to hire a CMO and I'm just going to outsource all of the thinking on marketing to her because it's just not my thing. I'm going to focus on product. That is totally a fair approach. But if you like the marketing stuff and you believe in it and you believe in your industry and you believe in like coming up with ideas and being creative, then this is an amazing place to apply your creativity to your business and say, yeah, you know what? 9 out of 10 of the other founders in my space are not going to do this. And so I am going to. Like Adam Robinson is not the first founder to ever bootstrap a profitable company.
Right.
But the way he writes about those things is very specific and tactical and polarizing, and it works. And it works for him. So what are you going to do? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be like? And then last thing on this Patagonia thing, because this all comes from this great book called Let My People Go Surfing by their founder, Yvon Chouinard. But he basically says, it's much easier to be yourself than it is to try to be a character. And so he's like, when you create a brand character, and the example in the book, I think it was like the Marlboro Man, you have to think about who that brand character is every time you go into work, right? But if you are yourself, and this is something that's gotten a lot easier for me as I've become more mature. I think part of it comes from like maturity, having some success, so being more comfortable, getting older, whatever. But I'm like, I'm just going to be myself because it's much easier to be like, oh, I'm just being me as opposed to like, all right, I got a work call with Max now, so I got to be work Dave. And because I'm like, oh shit, no, that's a thing that like personal life Dave would say. He can't curse or he can't make a joke about something on this. That's work. They're different people. Too hard to do that. And so I think the same is true for marketing. The more clear you can get on like how you want to do marketing, the more authentic you'll be able to be.
I love it. Dave, thanks so much for your time. This was a great discussion on Chapter 4 of Founder Brand, and I'll see you next month.
See you next month. Sounds good.